Sham Sharadava Nalalidaloka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalidaloka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalina Gunanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda Vande Gurashi Charanaravinda Mahaprabhu Kirtananrita Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu Gita Vaditramadhyam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Gurashi Shri Vigrara Dana Nityanana Shringaratanama Diramajanado Shri Shringaratan Mandirama Joktasya Bhaktamsa Niyonjatapi Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satanatruptan Hari Bhakta Sangam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satanatruptan Kridvaiva Trupti Vajata Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shiradikama Vabayaraparam Madhuralila Gunarupanamna Shiradikama Param Madhuralila Pratikshana Dhanalolupasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Dhanalolupasya Nikunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Rajali Virijuktir Apekshaneya Nikunjayona Ratikeri Siddhai Rajali Virijuktir Tatrati Daksha Oti Balabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Sacha Dharitena Shamasta Shashre Ruktastatava Vyataiva Sadhuvi Sakya Dharitena Shashre Kintu Prabharja Priyaeva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Priyaeva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasadam Sadam Yasya Prasadam Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Dayam Stuvam Yasatri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara. Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Charanara Vrindam. Vande Guru Shri Charanara. Nama Om Krishna Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Om Krishna Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Danta. Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachata Dishata Rine. Namaste Sarasate Deve Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Tanya Shri Advaita Gadadhara Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Hariyaraya Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah, Gopal Govindaram Shri Madhusudam, Giridhari Gopina Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hare Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raguna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava, Radha Nila Madhava, Radhe. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadrama, Jaya Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Pramanande, Hari Hari Haribo. Jai Vishnu Paraparam Saprabha Jagachari Sutara Saraswati Maharaj, Jaman Gain Samgata Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakachar Vaishnava Siramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Udhari ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhadra Gunath Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur ji ki jai. Jayananta Puri Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Prem Se Kaho Se Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Jai Premanama Sankirtane ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavaranavatari ki jai. Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga ki jai. Yuga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Brihat Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Radha Kund Samakund Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathurudham ki jai. The Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai. Shri Shri Maya Punavadip Ekachakra Dham ki jai. Paramakaruna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Shrimati Subhadra Dev Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan ki jai. Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman ki jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kari Shingare Bhagavan ki jai. Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Maturadharani ki jai. Shamaveta Bhakta Vrindi ki jai. Nitai Gaurari Pramanande Haribo. All glories to the Assembly Bodies. All glories to the Assembly Bodies. All glories to the Assembly Bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praglada Ladadayine Hiranyakashipo Rakshaha Hiranyakashipo Rakshaha Chilantanka Nakalaye Chilantanka Nakalaye Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha Yato yato yami tato Narsimha Bahe Narsimha Hirdaye Narsimha Narashima Madim Saranam Prapate Tavakara Kamala Bare Nakam Abhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringa Keshavatita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Avakara Kamala Vare Akam Abhuta Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringa Keshavatita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jayo Keshavatita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Keshavatita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Narasimha De Jaya Narasimha De Jaya Narasimha De Jaya Narasimha De Narasimha De Jaya Narasimha De Narasimha De Jaya Narasimha De Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi ki jai.
Namo Nama Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo.
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Nama
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi
Radha Krishna Seva Pava Eya Vilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Eya Vilasi.
Je tomara sharanaloy Tara vancha purna hoy
Chetomara Sharanala Tarabancha Puna.
Kripa kori korotare Vrindavanavasi
Tumi kripa kari karotare Vrindavanavasi.
Moraeya Vilas Vilas Kunjediava
Moraeya Vilas Kunje Diyava.
Nayane Haribo Sada Jugala Ruparashi
Aminayane Ribo Sada Jugala Ruparasi.
Hey Nivedana Daro Sakir Anugata Koro
Eni Vedana Dara Sakira Yano Gatakar.
Seva Adhikara Diye Koro Nijadasi
Seva Adi Kara Diye Karani Jadasi.
Zina Krishna Dase Koi Eye Namora Hoy
Dina Krishna Daseka Eye Namora.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Basi
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayana Basi
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadayena Vasi.
Yani Kani Chapapani Tyatikani cha Tani Tani
Janika Nisa Papani Brahma Tarika Nisa Tani Tani Prana Santi Pradakti Na Pade Pade Tanika Nisa Papani Brahma Tarika Nisa Tani Tani Prana Santi Pradakti Na Pade Pade
Tani Pranashanti Parakshana Pade Pade
Tanika Nisa Papani Brahma Tarika Nisa Tani Tani Prana Santi Pradakshana Pade Pade
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda
Nitya Gaura Haribo 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo
Nitya Gaura Haribo 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 Nitya Gaura Haribo Jai Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Bai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha Shri Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki Jai O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. My desire is that you also give me a residence. Let it grow to Shri Vrindavan. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry the hymns of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me all men's servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always sing in love Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Ratanam Mahajanam. Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakayavda Ida Sarva Shaktis Tatra Dikta Niyamita Shvarane Nakala Etadrishi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaiva Midrisham Yajanina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Radhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagarisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavatar Bhakti Raituki Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Paritamam Vishame Bhavam Buddho Kripaya Tavapada Pankaja Sitaduli Sadrisham Vichintoyo Nayanam Galora Shrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadharudaya Giral Ulakarin Chitam Bapu Kadal Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimishena Shakyusha Prabhusaitam Sunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virainam Aslishabhapadaratam Pinashtamam Adarshana Narmahatam Karotuva Jatadhatava Vidadatu Lamputu Matpranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavaranaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Pishino. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life for repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the primary benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus we have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. They are not hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, I do kindness to enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord and stroll in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet some or other I've fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and you shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Krishna Ki Jai. So there are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1, to blaspheme the devotees who dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2, to consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4, to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6, to give some interpretation on the holy names of the Lord. 7, to commit sinful activities and strength with chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as activity karma kanda. 9, to instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10, to not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully carry these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditions. So, Jai Vancha, Kulpatarvescha, Kripasindhu Devacha, Baritanam Vaishnavebhyo Namo.
Prayers ki jai. Om Aganya Timirandasya Yananjana Salakaya
Chachurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chaitannam Vistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Sahabhagatamam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Sakarivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestha Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Dinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskatya Saharine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namini Shivashavani Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhe Namaha Madhu Ujvala Pramadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Rupani Shri Mutaye Mutarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhata Dvattaharine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Saksai Vairagya Murtaye Vipralamba Rasambode Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhatnoya Sachidananda Namine
Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vir Baba Bunestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Shri Jagannathayate Namaha Panchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurachase Namaha Namo Bhaktakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Manda Mater Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Rindaranya Kalpradumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prestali Vihi Sevyamanam Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Guru Pranama Prayers Ki Jai Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Prakasasat Mansuga Pavriksha Lakshal Vrite Susurabira Vipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kwanantam Adavinda Dalayataksam Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Jibanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sadurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsada Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyastiyat Papadasimya Vichintya Tatre Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatam Jagadanda Koti Yaschakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Dio Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistavanti Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasapati Bhavitabis Tabirya Eva Nipja Rupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadesu Hadayesu Vyokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Amenatistan Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumamyo Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti Koti Swasesu Asubhadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Adantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Vishayaveda Vitayamanam Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Leela Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Golokanamni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sute Sutesu Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vihitaschayena Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Shrististati Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Ichanurupam Apiyasya Chichestatesa Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vidhara Visaruga Ahitata Priti Hetu Yasambutam Apitata Samapaitikaryat Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Eva Hitasantanam Abhyupetya Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samanu Dharma Yastadrik Eva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Shaktim Avalambhyas Param Swamurtim Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasitakala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kala Visesu Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Teja Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidanukarta Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Bala Vyugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dwande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahi Gaganamambu Marudisascha Kalastatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Teja Yasyagaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayasta Pamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Tayascha Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastindra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswa Karma Bandhan Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Chabhakti Bhajam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guragora Vasevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiyakanta Kanta Paramak Purusha Kalpataravo Truma Bhumishchintamani Ganamayitoyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriya Saki Chidanandam Jyoti Param Apitad Aswadyam Apicha Sayacha Siradi Bihi Sravati Surabi Byashta Sumahan Nime Sardak Yuva Rajati Nahiyatrapi Samaya Bhaje Sritadvitam Tamaham Ipa Golakam Itiyam Vidantas Te Santak Shiti Virachara Katipaye Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Sri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai. Shri Guru Pranama prayers, Guru Astika prayers Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always led by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, verse number 41. Sattvam Rajastama iti Tisra Sura Ninarakaha Tadrapyekai Kasorajan Pidyante Gatayastrida Yadaikai Kataro Nyabhyam Swabhava Upahanyate. Sattvam, the mode of goodness. Raja, the mode of passion. Tama, the mode of darkness. Iti, thus. Tisra, the 3. Sura, demigod. Nri, human being. Naraka, one who is suffering hellish conditions. Tatra, api, even there. Ekai kasa, another. Rajan, O king. Bidyante, divide into. Gataya, movements. Trida, 3. Yada, at that time. Ekai katara, one in relation with another. Anyabhyam, from the other. Swabhava, habit. Upahanyate, develops. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. According to the different modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of darkness, there are different living creatures who are known as demigods, human beings, and hellish living entities. O king, even a particular mode of nature, being mixed with the other 2, is divided into 3, and thus each kind of living creature is influenced by the other modes and acquires its habits also. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The living entities individually are being conducted by a particular mode of nature. But at the same time, there is every chance of their being influenced by the other 2. Generally, all conditioned souls in the material encagement, meaning the material body, are influenced by the mode of passion because every one of them is trying to lord it over the material nature to fulfill his individual desire. But in spite of the individual mode of passion, there is always the chance of being influenced by the other modes of nature, by association. If one is in good association, he can develop the mode of goodness. And if in bad association, he may develop the mode of darkness or ignorance. Nothing is stereotyped. One can change his habit by good or bad association, and one has to become intelligent enough to discriminate between good and bad. The best association is the service of the devotees of the Lord, and by that association one can become the highest qualified man by the grace of the Lord's pure devotees. As we have already seen in the life of Srila Narada Muni, he became the topmost devotee of the Lord simply by association of pure devotees of the Lord. By birth, he was the son of a maidservant and had no knowledge of his father and no academic education, even of the lowest status. But simply by associating with the devotees and by eating the remnants of their foodstuff, he gradually developed the transcendental qualities of the devotees. By such association, his taste for chanting and hearing the transcendental glories of the Lord became prominent, and because the glories of the Lord are non-different from the Lord, he got direct association with the Lord by means of sound representation. Similarly, there is the life of Ajamila in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, who was the son of a Brahmana and was educated and trained properly in the discharge of the duties of a Brahmana, but who, in spite of all this, because he contacted the bad association of a prostitute, he was put into the path of the lowest quality of Chandala, or the last position for a human being. Therefore, the Bhagavatam always recommends the association of the Mahat, or the great soul, for opening the gate of salvation. To associate with persons engaged in lording it over the material world means to enter into the darkest region of hell. One should try to raise himself by the association of the great soul. That is the way of the perfection of life. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. According to the different modes of material nature, the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of darkness, there are different living creatures who are known as demigods, human beings, and hellish living entities. O king, even a particular mode of nature, being mixed with the other two, is divided into three, and thus each kind of living creature is influenced by the other modes and acquires its habits also. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is a very clear explanation of how, through association, we become conditioned to suffer or to enjoy, or a mixed bag of the two. So, therefore, it's incumbent on every parent to teach this to their children, that they can be, even though they might be born in a good family, they can end up to be a really low-class knave. Look that word up, K-N-A-V-E. It's an old English word. Yeah, they can become the lowest class person, or the lowest class person born in a very bad family, by association with saintly people, can become the best person. Or in other words, a Adama can become Uttama, or an Uttama can become an Adama. What does knave mean? K-N-A-V-E. Here's the microphone. Here's the microphone.
Thank you. A dishonest or unscrupulous man.
There you go. That's what happened to Ajamil. Although he was born in a Brahmana family, trained as a Brahmana till he was about 16, and then he saw two really low-class people, a man and a woman, engaged in illicit activities in the forest, and he heard them talking and laughing and doing nonsense, and it affected his mind. Now, that is a long time ago, right? Just imagine today. You don't have to go and walk around in the forest. All you have to do is just go on the internet, and you'll see anything. You know, all kinds of nonsense things and nonsense people. And like, for example, I always ask this question, and this is a question I'm going to ask everyone. Did anyone murder someone? Raise your hand, please. No? Okay. Did anyone ever see someone murdered? No? Okay. Well, that's normal. That's actually normal. So, something you've never seen and you've never done, right? But when you watch television, in 5 or 10 minutes, you see 5 or 10 murders, right? And so what does that do to a person? And if you play video games, in order to advance, a lot of the video games, in order to advance, you got to kill somebody, right? So what does this do to the mind of a young child? You buy them, a video game program, or you give them the Xbox or something like that, and all day long, my dear son, please come and eat lunch. Mom, I can't. I got to kill this guy to advance. You see, so they're spending all their time killing. What do you think that's going to do to their brain and their conception of life? You get ahead in life by killing someone, or stepping on them, or wiping them out. See, so we see how dangerous it is in the modern world because of this social media and this what you call binary technology. Right? Binary technology by itself is training a child not to focus on one thing. So it's binary. It's 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0. So therefore, every time there's a different frame on your screen, it's taking your mind away and training it not to focus on one thing. Whereas the whole Vedic pedagogy, or the whole process of teaching kids according to the ancient Vedic process, is to learn how to control the mind and focus it on one thing. And that one thing is Krishna. It's not making money. It's not killing somebody. It's not any type of subversiveness. It's purity in its highest form, how to please Krishna, right? And how to please Guru. So we see there's no duality. There's what's called monality. I see if that's an English word. I'm not sure. Monality. Mono is a Latin prefix that's used a lot, and that means one. What is it? Is there such a word as monality, or is it?
Well, there is no I don't see any dictionary
Word,
but there are some references in
is it mono?
Monality. So there are
Mona. Mana.
Lity.
Yeah.
That's what I searched
What
for.
does it say? What's the definition?
There is no definition, Maharaj.
Oh, okay.
So, but there's some names somewhere referred.
Look up the prefix mono. MONO. Huh? Take your mask off. I can't hear.
Singularity.
Singularity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait a minute. The demons use the word singularity to mean something different. Look up the word singularity. I mean, it should have different meanings, that word. It should mean one or unique.
Yes, mono means a prefix that means one, only, simple.
Yeah. So therefore, I'm making up an English word now. Monality. Monality means focused on one thing, right? And then, but as opposed to duality, it's focused on several things. So the television, the movies, and the internet will train your child not to be able to focus on one thing, and to in order to have pleasure, you have to have continual changing of their attention. So that's why someone who goes on the internet, let's say to look up the word man, right, and then they end up spending 2 or 3 hours on the internet because they had one purpose, and then they saw something else that interests them, and there's different pop-ups, and there's TikTok, and there's this thing, and there's that thing, and all of a sudden they spent 2 or 3 hours on the internet. See, so that is the culture of distraction. So therefore, these instruments, movies, radio, television, internet, Xbox, and so forth, video games, these are weapons of mass distraction. That's exactly what they are. They are weapons. They're weaponized to train a child's brain not to be able to focus on one thing. And most of the things that they do present to the child are bad. You see, the video games is training the child to kill and to be desensitized to murdering. So you see how dangerous the modern culture is. So this verse today is, Speak in the microphone.
Another word that equivalent to monality or unary.
Unary, okay.
Yeah, so that's the official word, the unary, binary, tertiary.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you told me that. I learned something. Unary. How do you spell it? U-N-I-A-R-Y? Oh, U-N-A-R-Y. Unary. Okay, good. Thank you. I like the word monary, but I will use the word unary also. Okay, so learning about the influence of the modes of material nature is very important, because if you read the 14th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which explains the modes of material nature, you will be able to, in a matter of 30 seconds to a minute, understand a person. You don't have to hear their history. You don't have to look them up on Wikipedia. If you just hear them speak and look at them, you would be able to understand exactly who they are and what they are and under what mode of material nature they are mostly functioning. See? So this is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. It says, in the 14th chapter, it says, when one properly sees that in all activities no other performer is at work than these three modes of nature, and he knows the Supreme Lord who is transcendental to all these modes, he attains my spiritual nature. So, for 99+% of the population, people are functioning under the influence of the modes of material nature, either goodness, passion, or ignorance, or a mixture of them. And just like we've given an example, when you sleep, you're in the mode of ignorance. When you wake up and suddenly realize, oh my God, I'm late for work, you're in the mode of passion. And if you're lucky enough to come to the temple and bow down before the deity, hear the kirtan, maybe hear the class, you might come up to the mode of goodness. So in one day, you can go through these three modes, or a combination of them. But the predominant mode that most people are suffering from is the mode of passion mixed with the mode of ignorance. And then there are some people who are truly in the mode of ignorance, right? But most people are in the mixed modes of passion and ignorance, and very little goodness. And there are some people who are mostly in the mode of goodness mixed with the mode of passion. So someone in the mode of goodness worships demigods. Someone in the mixed modes of goodness and passion worships Ganapati. And people in the mixed modes of passion and ignorance worship Durga Mata. And people completely in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and hobgoblins and demons, right? So, and you'll see this in life. Like, for example, look up now, uh, uh, demon worshippers that drink blood. Demon worshippers that drink blood. Look it up. You'll see there's a whole society in the United States. Demon worshippers that drink blood. Huh? Yeah. Or devil worshippers that drink blood. That's their name. Devil. There are actually people like that in the United States and other places. What does it say?
There's some reference to blood drinking devil worshippers face life for some.
What?
Blood drinking devil worshippers. There is a news that there is some. They face some. They ended up actually killing somebody, and then so there is a case.
Killed somebody.
Yeah.
Was this in Texas?
This one.
Anybody else find anything?
This is in London.
Oh, in London. Oh, the Brits. All right. So yeah, there are devil. Now there's a whole society in Texas also, in other states in the United States. In Florida, what does it say?
Two girls at a middle school in.
Well, come on, speak into the microphone. Take your mask off. By the way, starting from today, you don't have to wear masks anymore,
Oh yes, Maharaj.
right?
Yeah, we saw that actually.
Hey, Jay Inslee Key Jay.
Yeah, Satan worshippers plan to kill.
Satan worshippers, not
Satan.
Satan.
Yeah, Satan.
Satan worshippers.
Satan worshippers plan to kill classmates and drink their blood. Two girls at a middle school in Central Florida.
This is a middle school, right? They're
Yeah.
like 13, 14-year-old girls.
Yeah, were waiting in a bathroom, planned to overpower at least 15 smaller students, kill them with knives and drink their blood, authorities said Wednesday.
Now, where did they learn that?
Yeah, all video games.
What?
Video games mainly.
No. They're associated with some people, either through the internet,
Oh,
that there's a society of devil worshippers in America that drink each other's blood and also try and get victims to drink their blood. Did you know that? If you look carefully, you'll find that you'll see pictures of them. And devil worship is increasing in the United States right now. More and more people are becoming attracted to it. This is frightening, but it's a fact. Now, you saw a couple little articles already, right?
okay.
How do these 13, 14-year-old girls in middle school learn about killing some classmate and drinking the blood? It's unbelievable, right? But it's a fact. So there are, just like I explained, people that are in mode of goodness worship the devas. Now, why did I not say worship Krishna? Because you have to be above the mode of goodness to actually worship Krishna properly. You have to be in Suddha or transcendental goodness, Suddha Bhakti, in order to worship Krishna. And but people in the modes of goodness, they will worship some demigods, not all the demigods, some of them, and usually Surya or Brahma, like that. People in the mode of passion, mixed goodness and passion, worship Ganapati. People in the mode of passion will worship Lord Shiva, and people in the mode of passion and ignorance worship Durga Mata, and people in complete ignorance worship the devil or ghosts. Okay, so this is explained in the Bhagavad Gita also, where it says in the 14th chapter, it says, The manifestations of the mode of goodness can be experienced when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. And in the purport it says, there are 9 gates in the body, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, the mouth, the genitals, and the anus. When every gate, these are holes in the body, right? When every gate is illuminated by the symptoms of goodness, it should be understood that one has developed the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, one can see things in the right position, one can hear things in the right position, and one can taste things in the right position. One becomes cleansed inside and outside. In every gate, there is development of the symptoms of happiness, and that is the position of goodness. So, if our eyes are watching movies in which there's murders taking place or in which there are illicit activities taking place, then we are letting that into the mind through the eyes and also through the ears. And that puts us in the mode of ignorance. This is how people get influenced today. Previously, when there was no television, no radio, no internet connection through the telephone and so forth, or through the cell phone, people would go from the house to the temple, work in the fields, come back to the house, take a bath, go to the temple, and then go back home and start all over again the next day. That was the life. The whole social life was around the temple. That's why in the Vedic village, the temple was the biggest building. They didn't build, football stadiums or soccer stadiums or big cinemas and things like that, or big factories. That wasn't there. It was the village life, and there were a few cities. There were a few big cities in the Vedic time, but most of it was village life, and people didn't have all these, binary technology instruments, and they were focused on pleasing Krishna. So, either in South India, it's either Krishna or Shiva or Durga, etc. So you have Ranganath or Srirangam. It's basically all Narayana or Krishna. But then you have Madurai, which is, if I'm not mistaken, it's Lord Shiva. So we see, but that was the biggest building, and everybody else lived in simple residences, and their whole life was based on pleasing the deity. And that was the biggest building. Nowadays, it's, the sports stadium, it's the movie. Nowadays, they have these movies with 15 different movies that you can see at once if you want. You go from one to the other inside that one big building. Or it's it's a big factory. But before, they didn't have any of those things. Now, is that good or is it bad? Well, actually, for training people to go back to Godhead, it was very good. For training people to stay in the material world, it's very bad. You need the factories, you need the stadiums, you need the nightclubs, the bars, the what do you call that? Hyderabadi, Hyderabad. What's the name of that food that they? Biryani. Yeah, you need a biryani palace, right? See, so that's what that for staying in the material world and suffering in hell. You need those things. But if you want to go back to Godhead, you need the temple, the biggest building in the town or the village, and people living simple lives and mostly self-sufficient, and focusing their whole life on pleasing the Lord. That's called Daiva Varnashram. Okay, so that's the mode of goodness. And then the mode of passion, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, meaning selfish activities, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, one in a mode of passion is never satisfied with the position he or she has already acquired. He or she hankers to increase their position. If he wants to construct a residential house, he tries his best to have a palatial house, and if he would be able to reside in that house eternally. As if he would be able to reside in that house eternally. And he develops a great hankering for sense gratification. There is no end to sense gratification. He always wants to remain with his family and in his house and to continue the process of sense gratification. There is no cessation of this. It never stops, in other words. All these symptoms should be understood as characteristic of the mode of passion. Now, of course, no one can remain forever in their house, but they live as if, they think and they live as if they will, right? So there was once this king, and you know, in India, let's say there's a really nice building, all of a sudden, over time, you'll see, you know, people that are street people, they start living on the outside of that building, right? You might not see it so much anymore, but it used to be like that. I remember whenever I'd go to Calcutta, there were the people had these big mansions, and outside, people would build a little house, or not a house, but something like there'd be a pipe, a big pipe, or they would do like the homeless people in Seattle do. They get a tarp or something, and they're living in it, right? Is that right? Have you seen that? And then you have the shanty towns, like in Mumbai, where you have these makeshift residences, and the whole families, and a lot of people are living in them. Okay, so there's a story about there was a rich king, and he had a really big palace and a nice wall around it, and all of a sudden, some people started to live, you know, because the wall, at least that's one side that's protected, right? And then you build two or three walls somehow with a tarp or something, and now you have a little house, right? So there were some people camping out outside his palace, and he got really angry. So he ordered some of his men to go and tear down those, you know, shanty houses. And the people, of course, were really upset and had to leave. So there was one sadhu that saw this. So therefore, he went back to where they had set up this temporary residences, and he just camped there, you know. And the king noticed this over time, and he got really mad. But because he was a sadhu, he wanted to deal with him directly. So he comes out with some men around him, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "What am I doing here?" He said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "What do you mean, what am I doing here? That just belongs to me." I said, and then he said, "Well, were you living here 30 years ago?" And the king said, "Well, what does that have to do with anything?" Well, he said, "Answer the question. Were you here 30 years ago?" He said, "No, I wasn't here 30 years ago." So who did it belong to then? It belonged to my grandfather or something, you know. And he said, "Well, when was this palace built?" And he said, "Well, it was built 100 years ago." So he said, "Well, who was there in this palace before your grandfather?" He said, "Well, that was somebody else." So he said, "So you can't say this place belongs to you. It's already changed hands 3 times." He said, "Why? What do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, you're going to die and someone else will come and live here. So why are you telling me to move? I have a right to live here too, just like you. You're living here. You don't really own the place. You own it. You think you own it now, but you'll die and then somebody else will own it. And so I have a right to stay here also." So he confused the king, you know, and the king just walked away. You see? So, but he was telling the truth, right? I mean, like right now, I grew up in Philadelphia in a row house in Philadelphia in a neighborhood, and my family lived there. I think they bought the house in the beginning of 1940s, and I grew up in that house till I was around 20, 21. And then I would go back every once in a while and visit it, and then I didn't go back for a long time. And my brothers died, my mother died, my father died, and somebody else is living in that house now. So how can I say or think that I will live forever in that house? You see? And way before my parents bought the house, other people owned that house, right? So therefore, in the mode of passion, people think that they're going to live forever in a house, in a particular property, and continue their sense gratification. But that's an illusion. And then the mode of ignorance, when there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of Kuru, darkness, inertia means laziness, madness, and illusion are manifested. And the purport Prabhupada says, when there is no illumination, knowledge is absent. One in the mode of ignorance does not work by a regulative principle. He wants to act whimsically for no purpose. Even though he has the capacity to work, he makes no endeavor. This is called illusion. Although consciousness is going on, life is inactive. These are the symptoms of one in the mode of ignorance. Well, we see people like that. They're mostly homeless people, and the richer Jeff Bezos becomes, the more homeless people there are. How is this possible? The more wealthy some people become in Seattle, the more homeless people are produced. Why? Because not everyone can compete in such a highly competitive society, right? Why? You tell me, why are there so many Indian and Chinese immigrants to the United States working in IT? Because they can't train enough Native Americans, and when I say Native people born in America, to take those jobs. So they have to import people. Just like after World War II, in order to get the work done in factories in Germany, they imported thousands and thousands and thousands of Turks and other people from less opulent countries, and then also like in Mumbai, what do? They bring people from Bihar to be servants. So they bring in the Biharis, or bring people from other countries, the poor countries, to be their servants. And the Arabs do this all the time. They have people from so many different countries, Filipinos and Laotians and Cambodians and even Indians. They come and work for them because they don't have enough people to do all the work, all the low labor or low class work. And also, how come there's still Hindus in Pakistan? Because the Pakistanis did not kick out the Bungis, the Hindu Bungis, because they needed them to clean the streets and clean the toilets and things like that. So you still have not significant, but you have a lot of, you still have a lot of Hindus living in Pakistan and Bangladesh, right? Because they were usually doing all the higher class Hindus moved away, but the lower class Hindus, they were not really massacred because they needed them to do work, right? So we see that the mode of ignorance is an illusory, people are living in an illusory state of mind completely, and they're being exploited usually, or they're trying to exploit others, but they're usually very lazy. Okay, so it says, when one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains the pure higher planets of the great sages. When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive, meaning materialistic, selfish activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, some people have the impression that when the soul reaches the platform of human life, it never goes down again. This is mainly the Theosophists, if you know, you look it up, Theosophy, Theophy, I think. The Theosophical society was started by Madame Blavatsky, who had, I think she was a Russian Jew, and she had some knowledge of India and Vedic Dharma, and so she started this some quasi-spiritual movement called the Theosophical Society. What's it say?
Yeah, Theosophy is a religion established in United States during the late 19th century. It was founded primarily by the Russian immigrant Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky, and draws its teachings predominantly from Blavatsky's writings, categorized by scholars of religion as both a new religious movement and as part of the occultist stream of Western esotericism, right?
Esoteric.
No,
Yeah.
esotericism. It draws up.
Esotericism. No, that's not the way you pronounce that word. It's not esotericism.
No,
Esoteric.
No, esotericism. Esotericism.
Okay, esotericism. It's not esotericism.
Not terrorism. Esotericism.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It draws upon both older European philosophies such as Neoplatonism as well and Asian religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism.
Yeah, she did what you call a kitchery. She took a little bit here, a little bit there, put it together, and tried to make her own religion. And there was some success. I gave a lecture once in the Theosophical Society in Paris. They have a big building, right? But it's all hodgepodge, mixed up stuff, right? And it's not really going anywhere. It did go somewhere. It did have a lot of following at one point, but it's just very neutered now. Right? Okay, so in the purport it says, some people have the impression that when the soul reaches the platform of human life, it never goes down again. So that's what they're teaching in the Theosophical Society. You can only go up, you can't go down. Of course, that's false. This is incorrect. According to this verse, if one develops the mode of ignorance, after his death, he is degraded to an animal form of life. It says it right there in the verse. It says, one who dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. From there, one has to, again, elevate himself by an evolutionary process. Not an evolutionary process of changing bodies, but one changes bodies based on consciousness, right? The bodies are already there. Just like there's so many different types of cars that you can buy. You can buy a Lamborghini or you can buy a Yugo. The Yugo is probably the worst car in the world. It used to be made in Yugoslavia. I don't know if they still make them now, but it was the worst car you could buy, right? Or the car built by the Farsis there. What was that car? It only cost 1,000 rupees or something. What was the name of that car? Yeah, Tata. Yeah, Tata made a really cheap car, right? No, nobody bought it. He thought everyone was it's going to be like the Volkswagen of India, right? Nobody bought the darn thing because no one wanted a cheap car in India. You say they already had cheap cars. They had the 3-wheelers and things like that. They didn't need another cheap car. So here we see that the aim of human life is not being achieved by people because they're being sidetracked by all these phony religions, the hodgepodge religions, and also all the atheism, and above all by what's called the material conception of life. Now, this is a big subject. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. This is what is being taught in the schools. It's the material conception of life. And that is that the purpose of life, first of all, to get people to be convinced about the material conception of life, first of all, they have to deny scriptural evidences and the existence of God. Secondly, they have to convince you that after death there's nothing. There's no existence after death. So once you become convinced of that, then you get the full-blown material conception of life. Since there's nothing after death, since there's no God that you're answerable to, therefore you can whimsically go through life seeking as much sense gratification as possible. And that's what they call living the saying in English is, work hard, play hard. You live your life to its full extent, full possibilities, and try and enjoy as much as you can, because when you die, everything is over. And there's no such thing as the law of karma, and there's no such thing as God, because then you would be responsible to someone, right? You'd be beholden by someone. And there's no standards that you have to follow. You can make your own standards. So this is the material conception of life. Now I'm going to read some very interesting things here. Prabhupada writes, he says, in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, this is a book by Srila Prabhupada, which is a summary book about the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chapter 27. By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. This is a paraphrase of the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, 45th and 46th verse. Yatak parvati bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam. Sakarmana tamabhyacha vidim vindanti manava. So, this perfectional process is followed by great devotees like Bodhayana, Tanka, Dramida, Guhadeva, Kapardi, and Baruchi. Now, we understand who is Guhadeva. He was a tribal member, but who very much respected Lord Ramachandra when Ramachandra was banished into the forest. And although these are tribal people that have been in India since the beginning of time, they were outside of the Vedic culture, and they lived in the jungles of India. And they still have the tribals in India, right? And they're usually considered, like Dalits, the outcasts of Hinduism. But actually, Guha was a devotee. Now, even though his people were eating meat, he probably was eating meat also, at least sometimes. In fact, he even offered meat to Lord Rama. But he respected Lord Rama, and he served him, and Lord Rama accepted his service. So the Ramayana is amazing scripture, because it shows that when Lord Rama, who is God himself, was banished, he lived in the jungles of India, and he gave his mercy to the lowest people, and even mixed people, animals, and straight out animals, like the monkeys. They were not just ordinary monkeys. A Hanuman is not an ordinary monkey. He's a mixture between a human being, actually a devata, and an animal. His father is Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva's seed was given to Anjani, who was a monkey. So therefore, Hanuman is mixed monkey and deva. So, and there were all kinds of mixed human animal beings. Some just animal, some just human, and some mixed in the jungle. And he met them, and he gave his mercy to them. And like, for example, the vulture. What was his name again? Jatayu. Yeah, Jatayu is a vulture. Vultures are the most vile birds in the world. They eat dead bodies, right? Jatayu was a devotee, right? Srila Prabhupada said, we should all be like Jatayu, willing to die to save Sita Devi. And so the Ramayana is an amazing book because it has the whole Vedic culture in it, and it shows that no one is outside of the mercy of the Lord. The Lord is there to give His mercy to everyone, whether they're human beings or animals or even trees or whatever. So it's an amazing, amazing book. So here it's saying, in the material conception, one thinks himself to be the Lord of all he surveys. Consequently, he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. As soon as one comes to know his real position in transcendental service to the Lord, he at once becomes freed from all these miseries. The position of servitor is wasted in the material conception of life in an attempt to dominate material nature. Now, what does that mean? Let me finish it, then we'll explain. The living entity is forced to offer his service to relative material energy. When this service is transferred to the Lord in pure consciousness of spiritual identity, the living entity at once becomes free from the encumbrances of material affection. Now, and then the next one says, by following the qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now, please hear from me how this can be done. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. That's Bhagavad Gita 18:45 and 46. This perfectional process is followed by great devotees like Bodhiyanta, Tanka, Dramita, Guhadeva, Kapardi, and Baruchi. All these great personalities have followed this particular path of perfection. The Vedic injunctions also aim in this direction. Ramananda Raya wanted to present these facts before Lord Chaitanya, but apparently discharge of ritualistic duties wasn't sufficient, for Lord Chaitanya said that it was external. Lord Chaitanya was pointing out that if a man has a material conception of life, he cannot attain the highest perfection even if he follows all the ritualistic regulations. That's an amazing point. And we have, most Hindus are simply following, and most Buddhists and most Christians are simply following ritualistic processes without actually getting rid of the material conception of life. One example of that in Christianity is called prosperity theology. Look that up, prosperity theology. Prosperity theology, there's a whole bunch of pastors or ministers or priests in the Christian Protestant movement that teach that God wants you to be rich. But you become rich by tithing, at least 10% or more. Tithing means you're giving donations, right? So, but the only guy that gets rich is the preacher. Right? So what does it say? Prosperity theology.
Yeah, prosperity theology, sometimes referred to as prosperity gospel.
Prosperity what?
Gospel.
Gospel, yeah.
The health and wealth gospel or the gospel of success. So these are all the different other names for it.
Synonyms.
Is a religious belief among some Protestant Christians that financial blessing and physical well-being are always the will of the God for them.
Is what?
The will of the God.
Yeah, God wants you to be rich. Right? That's what they're preaching, right? Now, when people go to see Balaji, what do? You have like 30 seconds before the priest push you. And please let me win the Indian lottery, or please let my business do better, or please, let my grandmother's backache go away. What are they doing? they're asking for some material benefit from Balaji. That's why so many people go there, right? I remember I visited in Hyderabad. There's a green card Balaji. Is that right? They say green card Balaji?
Yes, there is Visa Balaji.
No, Visa Balaji, right? So I went there, and they told me, well, you have to walk around so many times, in Parikram of Balaji, and then they give you some little card, and you have to keep track of how many times you walk around. And then if you get what you want, you have to come back and do many more parikramas and so forth. Is this right or wrong? Have any of you gone to Visabalaji temple? You went there?
Yeah, I visited too.
Now, what's the difference between Visabalaji parikrama and prosperity theology? There's no difference. It's the same thing, right? It's not, and it's in every religion. It's in Christianity. We just went through that. It's in Hinduism. It's in Islam also, and it's in Buddhism also, and it's in Jainism and Sikhism. In every one of the religions, they have the same thing. It's like the Chinese guy named Something. It's exactly the same thing, right? So, and that's what's being said here by Lord Chaitanya. He rejected it. He said, so this verse that says that you can attain perfection by your own, activity in life. Like, let's say you drive a taxi. You can attain perfection if you worship the Lord along with that, and you offer the result of your work to the Lord. But most people, they don't actually give hardly anything to the Lord. Like when you go to Tirupati, I mean, some rich guy will give, gold and jewels, and poorer people, they give whatever they can afford to give, right? But they're giving pittances in order to get huge, benefits. So therefore, there's a famous saying in India that the sadhus use to say, you give me 1, you get back 10. Now, you can't get that in a bank, right? Am I right? Do they say that? Huh? What do you say, sir? Yeah. Now, where does all this come from? This is all nonsense, right? So Lord Chaitanya, because he understood that this idea that you give 1 and you'll get back 10, it says, the Vedic injunctions also aim in this direction. Ramananda Rai wanted to present these facts before the Lord, but apparently discharge of ritualistic duties wasn't sufficient. So in other words, Lord Chaitanya is having a discussion with Ramananda Rai, and Lord Chaitanya said, what's the best way to go back to Godhead? So Ramananda Rai was presenting different Vedic concepts, and on this one concept that, if you follow all the ritualistic formularies in the Hinduism, you'll attain Swarga. Let's say, for example. And people are talking about Swarga, isn't it the heavenly planets, right? And the Muslims are talking about Jannat, which is 70 virgins and rivers of wine and beautiful forests and gardens, right? Well, here it's saying, but apparently discharge of ritualistic duties wasn't sufficient, for Lord Chaitanya said that it was external. Lord Chaitanya was pointing out that if a man has a material conception of life, he cannot attain the highest perfection even if he follows all the ritualistic regulations. That means you're going on pilgrimage, you're giving dawn, you are fasting every Monday for Lord Shiva, or you are doing this or you're doing that. You go to Vaishno Devi, and you walk in barefoot from Delhi to Vaishno. It's not going to help, because a person still has the materialistic concept of life. And what is that concept? That means that they want to live forever in Medina or Clyde Hill, or in a nice house with a lot of money and a lot of sense gratification. So it doesn't work. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions?
So Maharaj, all these religions have, as you said, to attract or to get people onto the path, maybe to attract to their greed.
Yes.
So is that...
So that they do the same thing on the television, you know, what's the name of that guy? He's always talking about how he can make you a millionaire. You just follow his program, and then he brings in these people. You know, someone is living in the Bahamas. He's got a cigar and some beautiful girl next to him. He said, "Well, I followed, you know, his process, and look what happened to me now. You know, I got this car and I got this house, and I live in the Bahamas, and right." So this is, I forget the name of that guy. I always forget the name of the demons. But he's very famous, you know, and he's always on the television talking about how he's going to make you a millionaire.
Hmm.
So he's a greedy person, and people who have greed are attracted to him because he's more greedy than they are. See? So they want to learn from him how to be more greedy.
Hmm.
So you cannot cheat an honest person, but it's easy to cheat greedy people, or people who. So most people are greedy because they have the material conception of life. So the more greedy people come and cheat them.
Right.
So they're telling you how you can become a millionaire by flipping houses, how you can become a millionaire without using your money, by using other people's money. Right? They have these advertisements every day. On the radio, the television, on the internet, the pop-ups on the internet, and so forth. And people are going for it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be advertising.
But
the same thing is in the religions.
correct. But I mean, that's, people are misusing that to keep people in the same consciousness or even pull them down,
No.
even though its intent is
What children learn in school is the material conception of life. They learn it in the family and they learn it in the school. Once you have the material conception of life, that is, you know, you have to be convinced that there's no God, and after death everything is over. Those are the two principal points. Then you have to live to the fullest, and living to the fullest means you want to make a lot of money, you want to use it for buying a lot of gadgets and acquiring properties, and you want to have nice clothes and nice this and nice that, nice car. That's the material conception of life. You want to have sense gratification. Now, you might be religious, right? You can see, like in the United States, you know, they have this big church in Washington D.C., and they have, you know, the richest people in the world go to that church, right? And they're all vishayis, they're all sense gratifiers, but on a high level, right? And they have this church, which is, I forget the name, it's the National Cathedral. Look that up, National Cathedral, USA. And they have these big programs in there, like before George Bush went to war with Afghanistan, he had a big religious ceremony in that church with Billy Graham, and you know, in other words, you know, right after that they started the war in Afghanistan. What's it say? National Cathedral?
the Washington National
Washington
Cathedral.
National Cathedral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in Washington D.C.
Yeah. It's a very interesting story how they build it. It's like a Vedic building. It's made out of solid rock. It's an amazing building. You know, I've been there once. It's an amazing building to see. Okay. Anyway, what else? You didn't finish. What else do you want to say?
I think because it's also there in religions, but the idea of all these religions ideally is that we elevate people's consciousness. But then the problem is that because they only tap into the current consciousness and then they keep them in this, like even like Visa Balaji, the intent in Vedic system is that you are gradually supposed to at least come on the path and then gradually elevate.
Now, but see, everything depends on the guru or the priest. If the guru or the priest is a greedy person, then you never advance. You stay on that level of just trying to maintain your spiritual, your material opulence through religion. See, so like for example, why, if you look at the story of Bali Maharaj and Sukracharya, Sukracharya was a materialistic guru, right? So, although he knew the truth, but when Vishnu actually appeared as Vamanadev, he tells, after teaching Bali Maharaj that you should offer everything to Lord Vishnu, right? When Vishnu actually appears, he says, don't give him a damn penny. Why? Because he said he's coming here to take everything you have, and if you lose everything, how am I going to get my monthly allowance? He was attached. As long as there's one attachment, one material desire, you cannot be a guru. You will be a kangaroo. See, and you'll mislead the people because you have a material. You still have the material conception in your mind. So it's very dangerous, even choosing, who you're going to follow, because if that person has an attachment, even one attachment, everything they say or do is going to be contaminated by it. One has to be completely free of the material conception of life. That's why we're studying it now, the material conception. It's the homework for this next week. Right? Okay, so any other questions? Yes. Anybody else? Yes, go ahead.
Guru Maharaj, the question is why everyone are going into the material conception of life? Because this reason is because of we are in Kali Yuga. Like Kali is very dominating.
No, even in Satya Yuga, there were people with the material conception of life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I like the way you say "vai." It's why. It's not "vai."
Why? But Maharaj, in Satyuga also,
the word "vai" in the Middle East, you say "vai, vai, vai." It's why. It's not "vai."
Why?
No, why?
Why?
It's not "vai." "Vai" means "vai, vai, vai." Why did this happen? Why?
Maharaj, in Satyuga also you are saying, right, this material conception of life was there. At that time, how they...
Yeah, but, it wasn't like as widespread as it is in the Kali Yuga. Right? So you're saying why? Why it was there?
No, why it was...
Because it's coming from the previous life. It's coming from previous life. See, there's a principle in Krishna consciousness. You cannot know for sure when you fell down from the spiritual world. But one thing is sure, to come to the human body, you already went through 8,400,000 species. So you've been in the material world, I've been in the material world, millions, maybe billions of years already. So we have a long history of material conception of life. And it's a subtle thing, and it's in the mind, and it comes through from the previous life and all the previous lives. It comes through to this present life. So it has to be defeated. But what happens? You go to school and you learn in your family the material conception of life. It's like crazy. Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. When you are saying the example of building up lot of material world, it is good for the devotees and not for the material people.
No, okay, say that question again. I didn't understand.
When in the example when you are giving, when the material world is building up, it is good for devotees, but bad for the people who are
When the material world is what? What is it doing?
It's growing.
It's growing. Okay. You mean materialism is growing?
Right.
Okay. And I said it's good for the devotees and bad for the other people, or what?
Yes.
When did I say that? What do you mean by that? Material opulence is good for the devotees and bad for the for the majority of people?
No, that's where I was like, how is it good for devotees is where I was not sure.
No. What's good for devotees is when there is trouble in the world, when people are in anxiety, because then they're willing to listen. That's what I said. Because when there's a lot of trouble, when the 401k goes down, when there's a war, or when there's too many homeless people living outside of your house, and the value of your house is going down because they're passing stool and injecting themselves, outside the wall of your house, or your mansion. So at that point, when people are in anxiety, they're willing to ask questions and find out why they're suffering. When everything is TK, they don't ask any questions, But it's only when things are not going well that they ask questions. So that's what I said. Okay. And did you have a question, sir?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol.
I was saying that, or in the purport was said that by the association of devotees, the doors of liberation are opened up.
Yeah.
And I've also heard that
Mahatwaram.
Ahardwar.
Yeah.
So I've also heard that Prabhupada, established ISKCON and all the different temples, so one can come and take association of devotees and
Yes.
get. So what's the most effective way of doing that? Because it's also easy to get into the ritualistic practices. I may come for Aarti, I may come for those things, I may do it in the ritualistic fashion.
Yes.
So how can one avoid being ritualistic and take advantage of the association?
Come to class. Come to class. Yes. Are we teaching? Do we have a sign up? Mangala Aarti, $50. This thing, $21. That thing, $101. We don't have that sign up here, but you go to most temples, they have that sign up. All the donations you can give for this thing or that thing, right? So that is a ritualistic process. Right? You get something back, just like in America, there's a nonprofit organization, right? Now, a nonprofit organization cannot give a tax-deductible receipt if the person's donation, if the person who gave the donation is getting something back for it. All right, it's illegal. It's not considered a donation if you get something back. Right? So many times, like for example, this happens a lot, or it used to happen a lot. Someone comes to the temple and says, "Oh, Prabhu, can I speak to you? It's very important." I said, "Okay, what is it?" He said, "I want to give you a donation, $4,000. I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "But," he said, "I need to get a green card. So I need a letter from you and that I can give to the Homeland Security." I said, "No, I'm not going to." "No, okay, I'll give you $6,000. No, I'm not going to. Okay, I'll give you $10,000. I said, "No, we can't do it. It's illegal. I can't do it." So if you're going to get something back for the donation, it's an illegal donation. And if the Homeland Security or the IRS finds out about it, they can cancel our nonprofit thing. The nonprofit is non-profit. You're not allowed to make a profit, right? You can't give certification that this person should get a visa because there's a member of our society. No, you can't do that if it's not true. Okay, so there has to be, if you're going to be in a nonprofit, let's say, status, you have to follow the rules. It's for only those people that follow these rules. Like, for example, we have a nonprofit food truck. We don't have to pay anything. We don't get inspected. Why? Because we're giving out free food. If they find out that we are selling the food, they would take it immediately. They would annihilate our special status. It's a very special status. Well, most people don't know you can get such a status. See? But if we violate it, then we lose that special status. And it's the same with the nonprofit religious society. If we're engaged in making money by doing businesses and this thing and that thing, then, the whole thing falls apart. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Who would like to sing? Guru Puja prayers. Anybody?
Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Bandhu Mohi Savadhana Mate
Bandhu Mui Savadhana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bhai Ye Bhava Duriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai He Bhava Toriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jaha Hoy De Prapti Ho Jaha Hoy De Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chiddete Goriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chittete Goriya Kya
Arna Goriyo Mane Asha
Aranan Goriya Maneya Sa
Sri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Sa
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
He Prasade Pure Sarva Asa
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakshudana Dila She Janme Janme Prabhu Se
तो चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakshudan Dila Je Janme Janme Prabhu Se
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
Divya Gyan Nidhe Prakasito
प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते
me bhakti paha hoite avidya vinasa jate.
Prema bhakti jaha hote avidya vinasha jate.
Prema bhakti jaha hoite avidya vinasa jate.
Vede gaye jaha racharito.
Vede gaye janaracharito.
Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhama Janara Bandhu.
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 Lokena Loke Rajivana. Aha Prabhu Guru Doya Deho More Pada Chaya.
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 Ebe jas Gusu Tribhuvana. Prabhupada Patita Pavana.
Prabhupada Patita Pavana.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine.
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva
Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva.
Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo
Jaya Guru Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajikachas Tatara Satara Shishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Devi Ki Jai. Anantakoti Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajikachas Tatara Satara Shishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Jamuna Maya Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhuta Vishamati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Pacharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Rasatarani. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the world, 3 worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vani Pacharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati. Sammuk did his homework, so we're going to hear it now. And anybody else that didn't get a chance to read their homework yesterday. So speaking of microphone.
Maharaj, yesterday at Sankirtan we distributed 30 chanted to be happy and 2 Bhagavad Gita and 160 burritos. We got $128, Maharaj.
Wow. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
We also got a $400 donation yesterday.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Somebody
Yeah, he came to the
said
truck.
food truck.
Well, no, he walked with us and chanted Hare Krishna as we were going back to the University Heights Community Center. And then the food truck arrived, and he walked up to the food truck and gave $400 to
Oh my God. Hare Krishna.
Dhananjaya.
Hare Bol.
Yeah,
Amazing Kirtan Maharaj. It was.
Haribol.
Thank
And it rained a lot yesterday, but
Yes,
still,
but
it was
still-
very successful.
Yes, Maharaj, yeah, definitely.
Haribol.
The homework was to read Srimad
Take the
Bhagavatam.
mask off. You don't have to wear a mask anymore. The governor said no mask obligation anymore. You can take it off.
The homework was to read Srimad Bhagavatam 3.25.43 and answer the following question. The first question is, what does the Sanskrit phrase akuto bhayam mean? The statement akuto bhayam means without any fear. In the material world, everyone is fearful because we have no idea of what is going to happen. We, being the marginal energy of Krishna, have the option to either be with Krishna or move away from him. And if we choose to leave Krishna, fear starts developing because the individual living entity has been absorbed in external material activities and completely forgets Krishna. Prabhupada in his lecture states, when so long we think that I am something of this material existence, there will be bhayam. In the material world, one
Bhayam means
Bhayam.
fear,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Don't read so fast. Just
Oh.
read slower and try and pronounce every word clearly.
Okay. In the material world, one identifies themselves with their material body. They start believing they are Indians, Americans, whites, etc. This creates uncertainty of what is going to happen.
This creates what?
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty. Yes.
Uncertainty of what is going to happen, which leads to fear or bhayam. Prabhupada gives the example of a child. Just like a child, if he is forlorn by the father and the mother, then he's always in a fearful condition.
If he's forlorn?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, forlorn means, in a sense, well, no. Forlorn means they're very sad.
Oh.
It doesn't mean that they've been abandoned. Look it up. Let's make sure that's right. Sad, abandoned, or lonely. Okay, so you used it correctly. Okay, sorry.
By the father and mother, then he's always in a fearful condition, crying on the street, "Where is my father? Where is my mother?" This is our position. If one desires to not be fearful anymore, they should take shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. The path of bhakti or devotion is immune from all kinds of fearlessness and problems because Krishna is there and takes care of his pure devotees. Krishna, being our eternal Father, helps us in our endeavor of trying to leave the material world to his eternal abode, but instead we choose to not try to take his help, which causes us to go through the material world repeatedly in different bodies. An example of a devotee who is not fearful is Prahlad Maharaj. Even though he was put through a lot by his father, he believed in Krishna and Krishna helped him. Therefore, if we desire to leave the cycle of birth and death, attain Krishna's abode, and ultimately not be fearful, we should develop ultimate faith in Krishna by performing devotional service. The second question was, what does padam padam yat vipadam mean? The statement padam padam yat vipadam means that in every step there is danger. In the material world, the living entities are completely engrossed in material activities, which develops fear and creates danger for the individual living entity. But for a devotee of Krishna, there is no fear. This is because one who has taken shelter of Krishna is protected by Krishna at all times. Therefore, everyone who desires to be free from fear in the material world should surrender themselves completely unto Krishna. The third question was, look up the verse Bhagavad Gita 15.7 and explain what that verse means. In the verse Bhagavad Gita 15.7, it states, Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha Tani Indriyani Prakriti Stani Karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Krishna in this verse states that we, the living entities, are his eternal parts and parcels. This statement by Krishna defeats the Mayavadis who believe that they themselves are God. We, being the part and parcels of Krishna, have some of the qualities but are quantitatively different. An example given by Prabhupada is a tiny fragment of gold and a whole piece of gold. Qualitatively they are the same, but quantitatively different. Marge, I wasn't able to complete the other two questions.
Okay, well, you did pretty good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Especially the first question, first and second question, you did very good
Thank you, Marge.
answers. Thank you very much. Now, do you believe what you wrote down?
Yes, Marge.
Okay, I hope so. Haribol. Thank you. Well, now we'll go to the next program, which is chanting our rounds. Of course, I finished mine already, but I'll chant a few more. Haribol. Now, I have some bad news. There's no pizza today. That's really bad news because it's Ekadasi. But that's the good news. It's Ekadasi. Hare Krishna.